If you want to make money as a content creator for businesses, this camera setup might be for you. So we'll first talk about the cameras, then the lenses, and then some accessories that you might need. So I've shot for businesses for about 7 years now, and there's two cameras that I can really think of. So the first one, let's talk about your video focus camera. So for this, I would say the ZV-E1, the A7S III, or the FX3. All of these have the exact same image quality, but there's some trade-offs for each one. So all three of these are known for how powerful they are in low light situations and that they can do 4K 120. I'm not going to dive into everything else because to me those are the most important factors here. So this will come in handy when you go to places where you don't have control of the light, or maybe you don't have a lighting setup yet. So some examples for me was shooting in food places, warehouses, or event spaces that have terrible lighting. Now, what's the difference between these three? So the ZV-E1 is obviously the cheapest one. The downside for that one is it only has one card slot. So if you're shooting something, you have nothing to back it up if that card fails. And there's also an overheating limit. A lot of people say they've never experienced it. I have experienced it, and usually once I record something for over 45 minutes straight, such as a podcast or a long tutorial for a client, it overheats and I'm gonna have to pause and switch to another camera. So that's something to think about. But if you're shooting short clips such as sports highlights, vlogs where you're shooting short clips at a time, maybe food or product highlights where it's not a long continuous shot, this would be perfect. Now for the A7S III and the FX3, those ones are a little more similar. The A7S III does have a eyepiece for the viewfinder on the top. To me, I personally like because there's so many times where I'm outdoors and the screen's a little hard to tell and I could just use the viewfinder to set my exposure. So for the FX3, what stands out to me is that there's an internal fan, which means your camera's never gonna overheat. You can have the optional top handle where you can plug an XLR input. So if you're using like say a podcast mic or some higher end mic, you can plug it straight to the camera instead of going through an interface and all that. And for a lot of people, I know they like the FX3 without the viewfinder because it fits better in bags. To me, I prefer the viewfinder, so it comes down to preference. So these ones are your video focused cameras, and remember what I said, they thrive in low light and they have 4K 120. It means you can shoot in 4K and you can do 5 times slow motion. That means you can shoot horizontal and crop in vertically for like a social media post and it'll still look good. It comes in handy for like wildlife or sports or things where you actually need to slow down like that. But primarily for my personal work, I don't really use it. And for the one thing that everyone's really concerned about for the ZV-E1, A7S III, and FX3 is that it only has a 12 megapixel sensor. And everybody thinks that the photo quality is going to be bad, but that's definitely not the case. If you're doing gigs for businesses, for their social media, your photos will still look good. I've used the A7S III for however long it's been out, I want to say 4 or 5 years, and nobody has ever complained about the photos. They still look super sharp. They still look very clean. The colors are good. And especially when you're just viewing it from a phone, there's no way you can really tell the difference. But if that matters to you, then our next selection of cameras are going to be our hybrid cameras. So for the next choices, you could probably guess it's going to be the A7 IV or the A7C II. So both of these you can still shoot slow motion. It's just going to be 4K 60 instead of 4K 120, which means you can slow down your footage to 40%, but there's also a crop. So if you're shooting in tight spaces, this might be a factor for you. So what makes this a better hybrid is that it has a 33 megapixel sensor, which means the photo resolution is going to be bigger. So if you are doing larger prints, it's going to retain more of that quality. And you can also crop in if you're just going to use the photos for social media. Probably wondering how much worse is the low light on these cameras versus the first category. So honestly, it's not that much worse. It's just going to be a little noisier, but it's still going to be passable. And if you were in dim situations, you're still going to be able to get usable footage out of it. Now, for the difference between the A7 IV and the A7C II, the A7 IV is a more professional camera where it does have 2 card slots so you can back up all your footage. And it's on a traditional full frame body versus the A7C II where it's a more compact body. There's still a viewfinder, but it's much smaller and there's only 1 card slot. However, but because the A7C II came out after the A7 IV, the autofocus is going to be better and there's going to be some updates in the menu system as well. So if you're looking for something more reliable and you want to treat it like a work camera, the A7 IV is definitely it. So the A7C II is in a more compact body, so it's more casual to bring around. All right, so next up we have lenses. And the point of this video is actually to help you save money, so I'm not going to be just recommending the most expensive stuff. So for the 3 lens choices, they're all going to be Tamron. It's going to be the 70-28, 28-75, and the 70-180. All of these are really good lenses at a very fair price. and depending on what you need, I feel like you really only need 2 of them to cover everything. So in my case, for what I shoot, I would normally just use the 70-28 and the 28-75. For the long range zoom, the 70-180, this will be more for like event people, sports, or something that you're gonna really need to stand far away to not be all up in people's faces. But a lot of the content that I shoot, I could be as close as I want, so that one's not really a priority for me. I would say the 70-28 really comes in handy when you're doing real estate, vlogs, or if you're shooting stuff that's indoors that you can't really back up that far. So the 28-75 is your great all-arounder, but because it's missing some on the wide end, you're definitely going to struggle indoors with this. Even before, when I had a 24-70, I felt like the 24 was hard to use if I'm stuck somewhere indoors. And the 70-180, I don't have that one anymore, but I shot a lot of outdoor dog sport events with that, and it was so clutch. It was light, and even though it's not a 200, that missing 20 isn't that big of a deal. Now, since we covered all the visuals, let's make sure people actually hear you. So back then when I first started, they didn't come out with wireless mics that were that accessible yet, but nowadays you have so many options. I would definitely recommend picking up a wireless mic like the DJI wireless mic. I think they're on a 3 now. I'm still using the version 1 right now, so I think all of those are still really good. And then you don't need this, but a shotgun mic definitely comes in handy. There's a lot of budget ones where you get for like $100. I think Rode has some and Sennheiser has some, but for me with my shotgun mic, I'm using the Sony one. I don't know the exact model, but I'll post it up on here. It's about $300. The reason why I really like this one is because you don't need any wires. It just plugs into your hot shoe mount and it works from there, so it makes your setup really small. So whether you grab the video focus setup or the hybrid focus setup, pair it with a solid Tamron lens and a good mic, and you'll be good to go. And your clients are not going to be able to tell the difference between using a Tamron lens versus an expensive G-Master Sony lens. With what I told you, it's going to carry you through most shoots. Don't fall for all the influencers trying to press you to buy this and that. I think the most expensive part is the body, but that's because everybody's updating these bodies so frequently nowadays. I think it's better for you to spend the $2K on the body now than to get a cheap one and upgrade later. If you're a new creator, let me know which one you think fits best for you. If you're someone who's already in the game, let me know what you think or what your setup is. But yeah, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, and leave it in the comments.